Here is a deep, detailed, yet very you shared, like a teacher explaining it in the easiest way to a complete beginner. Summary. The Makkaris were a powerful royal family who ruled North India around the 6th century CE, 500s AD, with their capital at Kanauj in modern Uttar Pradesh. This passage is about how far their empire reached in different directions, south, west, and neighboring regions, and what evidence we have to know this. 1. Makkaris ruled far to the south, up to Bundelkhand. Ancient record written on a sheet of copper, king named Bhojadev, mentions Sarvavarman, a Makkari king. This record says Sarvavarman gave land as a gift in a place called Udumbara inside the Kalanjara region. This is in Bundelkhand in central India. This means the Makkaris definitely controlled Bundelkhand, which lies south of Kanauj. 2. A royal seal found farther south, in Asirgarh. A seal, a king's official stamp, of Sarvavarman was found in Asirgarh, a place even farther south in modern. Scholars argue this seal might have been moved there later, so we can't be sure they ruled there. But others say the Makkaris had already defeated rulers in southern and central India, like the kings of Dara in Madhya Pradesh, the Andhras in Andhra Pradesh, the Sulikas, possibly a tribe or kingdom in south-central India. So it's very possible they really ruled Asirgarh too, or at least had strong control there. 3. Asirgarh was possibly the southern edge of the empire. If the Makkaris really controlled Asirgarh, it was probably the southernmost outpost, last southern station of their empire. Also, when Queen Rajyashri, a Makkari princess, was in danger, she ran to hide in the Vindhya forests. This proves that the Makkaris knew and trusted that region, which likely means they ruled or controlled it. 4. The Makkaris may have reached west to Gujarat. We don't know exactly how far west their empire went, but in records of Isanavarman's military campaigns, he was an early Makkari king, we see mention of the Raibataka mountain, modern Girnar Hills in Saurashtra, Gujarat. This suggests that they may have fought or sent armies that far west too. Overall power of the Makkaris. In the 500s CE, the Makkaris clearly ruled Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. They also had influence or military power in the east, Bihar, Magadha, south, Vindhyas, Bundelkhand, maybe Asirgarh, west, possibly up to Gujarat. Because they were so strong, and because they lived right next to the Pushyabhutis, another royal family in Haryana, it makes perfect sense that the Makkaris were once the overlords, superiors, of the Pushyabhutis. Conclusion. Very simply put, the Makkaris were powerful rulers of North India. They didn't just sit in Kanauj, they spread their rule far in all directions. And grants in Bundelkhand, seals found far south, and military camps toward Gujarat all show that they were one of the biggest powers of the time. And because the Pushyabhutis lived close to them, the Makkaris were probably their bosses, overlords, before the Pushyabhutis rose in power under King Harsha. Would you like a timeline map or family tree of these kingdoms next to make it even clearer? Here is a deep, detailed, yet very you shared, like a teacher explaining it in the easiest way to a complete beginner. Summary. The Makkaris were a powerful royal family who ruled North India around the 6th century CE, 500s AD, with their capital at Kanauj in modern Uttar Pradesh. This passage is about how far their empire reached in different directions, south, west, and neighboring regions, and what evidence we have to know this. 1. Makkaris ruled far to the south, up to Bundelkhand. Ancient record written on a sheet of copper, king named Bhojadev, mentions Sarvavarman, a Makkari king. This record says Sarvavarman gave land as a gift in a place called Udumbara inside the Kalanjara region. This is in Bundelkhand in central India. This means the Makkaris definitely controlled Bundelkhand, which lies south of Kanauj. 2. A royal seal found farther south, in Asirgarh. A seal, a king's official stamp, of Sarvavarman was found in Asirgarh, a place even farther south in modern. Scholars argue this seal might have been moved there later, so we can't be sure they ruled there. but others say the Makkaris had already defeated rulers in southern and central India, like the kings of Dara in Madhya Pradesh, the Andhras in Andhra Pradesh, the Sulikas, possibly a tribe or kingdom in south-central India. So it's very possible they really ruled Asargad too, or at least had strong control there. Sanskar 3. Asargad was possibly the southern edge of the empire. If the Makkaris really controlled Asargad, it was probably the southernmost outpost, last southern station of their empire. Also, when Queen Rajyashri, a Makkari princess, was in danger, she ran to hide in the Vindhya forests. This proves that the Makkaris knew and trusted that region, which likely means they ruled or controlled it. 4. The Makkaris may have reached west to Gujarat. We don't know exactly how far west their empire went, but in records of Isanavarman's military campaigns, he was an early Makkari king, we see mention of the Raivataka mountain, modern Girnar Hills in Saurashtra, Gujarat. This suggests that they may have fought or sent armies that far west too. Overall power of the Makkaris. In the 500 CE, the Makkaris clearly ruled Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. They also had influence or military power in the east, Bihar, Magadha, south, Vindhyas, Bundelkhand, maybe Asargad, west, possibly up to Gujarat. Because they were so strong, and because they lived right next to the Pushyabhutis, another royal family in Haryana, it makes perfect sense that the Makkaris were once the overlords, superiors, of the Pushyabhutis. Conclusion. Very simply put, the Makkaris were powerful rulers of North India. They didn't just sit in Kanauj, they spread their rule far in all directions. And grants in Bundelkhand, seals found far south, and military camps toward Gujarat all show that they were one of the biggest powers of the time. And because the Pushyabhutis lived close to them, the Makkaris were probably their bosses, overlords, before the Pushyabhutis rose in power under King Harsha. Would you like a timeline map or family tree of these kingdoms next to make it even clearer? Absolutely. Let's now go even deeper, step by step, and explain everything in the simplest way possible, like you are totally new to Indian history. I will slow down and make it clear using easy English, simple examples, and real-life comparisons wherever needed. Topic. Was Prabhakara Vardhana under the control of the Makkaris? We are talking about a time in Indian history before Harsha became emperor, when his father Prabhakara Vardhana was ruling a small kingdom called Thanisar in northern India, now in Haryana. At the same time, there was a much more powerful kingdom nearby, the Makkaris, ruling from Kanauj in modern Uttar Pradesh. The Makkaris were like a bigger boss kingdom, and smaller kingdoms like that of Prabhakara Vardhana were probably under their control. Let's break the entire idea down. 1. Where did the Makkaris rule? They ruled in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and nearby areas. But their military power, warlike activities, went even beyond, into Bengal, East, Himalayas, North, Vindhya region, central India. Simple meaning, the Makkaris were very strong and had influence across a wide area. Think of them like a big company with branches in many places. 2. Where was Prabhakara Vardhana's kingdom? His family, the Pushyabhutis, ruled in Thanisar, a smaller area between the Makkari capital, Kanauj, and the land of the Hunas, invaders in the northwest, kind of like foreign raiders. Simple meaning, Prabhakara Vardhana's kingdom was sandwiched between two major powers. One was strong India-based rulers, Makkaris, and the other was aggressive foreign invaders, Hunas. 3. What is hegemony? Hegemony means one ruler or kingdom is more powerful, and the others obey or follow them, even if those smaller rulers still have their own lands. Real-life example. Imagine a small shop that works under a big company's name. It runs on its own, but it follows the rules of the big company. So the Pushyabhuti kings, including Prabhakara Vardhana, were probably allowed to rule, but they had to respect Makkari authority and maybe send soldiers when asked, pay tribute, or marry into their family. 4. So, was Prabhakaravardhana under Malkari power? Yes, based on territory, he was surrounded by them. Marriage alliance. His daughter married a Malkari prince. Copied inscriptions. He used the same style of royal praise as the Malkaris. Historians think he was under their control for part of his life. 5. Important clue. Marriage of Rajyashri. Prabhakaravardhana's daughter was named Rajyashri. She married Grahavarman, a prince of the Malkari family. Simple meaning. When a weaker king gives his daughter in marriage to a stronger king's son, it shows that he wants to stay on the good side of the powerful family. This often happens when the stronger side is in control. So this marriage likely happened when the Malkaris were stronger, and Prabhakaravardhana was still a smaller king under their influence. 6. Another major clue, royal inscriptions. Let's now talk about how kings describe themselves in royal writings, called epigraphs or inscriptions. Harsha, Prabhakaravardhana's son, had some of these inscriptions written. In one of them, he described his father Prabhakaravardhana using certain fancy words. These words were almost exactly the same as the ones used by the Malkaris to describe their own kings. Let's compare. Malkari King Harivarman was described like this. His fame crossed the 4 seas. Other kings admired his power and bravery. He set society in order. He protected his people like a father. He worshipped Chakradhara, Lord Vishnu. He was called Maharaja, Great King. Prabhakaravardhana was described almost the same words, fame crossed 4 seas, etc. Only difference, he worshipped Aditya, sun god, not Vishnu. Also called Maharaja Dhirajas, king of great kings. This may have been added later, after he grew in power. Simple meaning, his description was copied from the Malkaris. This is like using someone else's company slogan. It shows you're influenced by them, or want to be like them. 7. What does all this tell us? Prabhakaravardhana's kingdom was small and surrounded by powerful neighbors. He married his daughter into the Malkarish, probably as a political alliance. His inscriptions copied Malkari kings, showing that he followed their style. All this points to the fact that he was under Malkari hegemony, like a junior king. But later, things changed, perhaps after his daughter's marriage. The Pushyabhutis grew stronger, and eventually his son Harsha became emperor of much of northern India. Full story in very simple words. Summary. A king named Prabhakaravardhana ruled a small area in North India. His neighbors, the Malkaris, were much more powerful. His daughter married a Malkari prince, which shows they were politically stronger than him at that time. His royal description copied Malkari royal style, showing influence. This tells us that for some time he was under the control of the Malkaris. But later, his family became powerful. His son Harsha grew up and became one of the greatest emperors of ancient India. Would you like me to now translate the Sanskrit lines word by word into simple English? Create a timeline or map of the Pushyabhuti and Malkari relationship? Or explain how Harsha rose to power after this? Let me know. Here is a very detailed, clear, and beginner-friendly summary of the passage. This summary captures all the explains the logic and adds extra background to help you understand fully. Detailed summary. This passage tries to prove that around 603 to 604 AD, a king named Prabhakaravardhana, Emperor Harsha, was in control or political pressure of another royal family, the Malkari dynasty. The main evidence for this is the unusual marriage between his daughter Rajyashri and the Malkari prince Grahavarman. 1. Rajyashri's age at marriage. Rajyashri was born around 592 AD. She was married around 603 to 604 AD, so she was about 11 or 12 years old at the time. Ancient texts describe her in poetic terms, that she was just starting to grow up, entering early puberty, with phrases like Tarunabhuta, just becoming a young woman, Yauvanaramba, starting womanhood, Payodaranatirasya, her breasts were beginning to swell. These phrases clearly show she was still a child, not yet physically or emotionally mature. 2. Grahavarman's age at marriage. Many people believed Grahavarman was also a young man at that time. But historian S.R. Goyal challenges this and provides a different idea. He uses a clever method by studying Grahavarman's childhood friend, a Buddhist monk named Divakarmitra. According to a writer named Bana, Divakarmitra was a boyhood friend of Grahavarman. When Harsha met Divakarmitra in 606 AD, the monk was already middle-aged. So Grahavarman, being the same age, must also have been middle-aged during the marriage, around 35 years old. 3. The big age gap. This means that when Grahavarman was about 35, he married 12-year-old Rajyashri. That's an age difference of over 20 years, which is not considered normal, even by old royal standards. Such a big gap would usually be rejected or avoided by a powerful royal father. 4. What this proves. If Prabhakara, Rajyashri's father, still allowed this strange marriage, it likely means he was not in a strong position. He probably could not refuse the proposal, even if he wanted to. This strongly suggests that he was politically weaker than the Maukari king. In other words, the Pushyabhuti dynasty, Prabhakara's family, was still subordinate under the control or influence of the Maukaris when this marriage happened in 603 to 604 AD. Why this is important? Historians often try to understand political power by looking at marriages, because royal marriages were not just about family, they were political deals. This case is a great example. A powerful king wouldn't let his 12-year-old daughter marry a 35-year-old man unless he had no choice. So the age difference becomes indirect proof of political pressure. Conclusion. In simplest terms, Rajyashri's marriage is not just a family event. It shows who had power in North India at that time. The Maukaris were more powerful, and the Pushyabhutis were still under them. This remained true until at least 603 to 604 AD, when the marriage took place. Later, this changed. Harsha eventually became emperor and made the Pushyabhuti dynasty very powerful. But at the time of this marriage, they were still junior. Would you like a diagram or timeline to make this even clearer? Here is a great, deep, and very simple detailed summary of the whole passage you shared about the marriage of Rajyashri to Grahavarman, as described by Bana in the Harsha Charita. This summary explains everything clearly: the people, the situation, the real meaning, and what Bana may have been trying to hide. Summary in the simplest and most detailed way. This story comes from the Harsha Charita, a book written by Bana, the royal writer of King Harshavardhana. The story is about the marriage of Harsha's sister, Rajyashri, to a prince named Grahavarman, who belonged to a powerful royal family called the Maukaris. Bana tells a poetic story about how King Prabhakaravardhana, Harsha's father, decided to marry off Rajyashri. One day, a man in the palace court sang a sad poem called an arya. The poem said that a growing daughter causes worry in her father's heart, just like a strong river can wear away its riverbank. Hearing this, the king began to feel worried and thought, "My daughter is growing up. It's time to get her married." Then Bana says that in the very same conversation, Prabhakara tells his queen that Grahavarman, the prince of the Maukaris, has already asked to marry their daughter. The king says the Maukaris are the greatest royal house at that time, and Grahavarman is very noble, so if the queen agrees, they should marry their daughter to him. But this part of the story doesn't make sense, and that's the key issue. Why doesn't this story make sense? 1. Two opposite events are happening at the same time. Bana says the king just now thought of marrying Rajyashri after hearing the poem. But in the next sentence, the king already knows that a prince has asked for her hand in marriage. These two things can't both be true. It's not logical. 2. Rajyashri was too young for such anxiety. The poem was about a fully grown girl whose maturity causes deep concern to her father. But historians say Rajyashri was only about 12 years old at the time of her marriage. Even in ancient times, that was not old enough for such maturity-based anxiety. 3. The groom, Grahavarman, was much older. Historians say Grahavarman was around 35 years old. He was a full adult, while Rajashri was still a child. This kind of match, a 35-year-old man marrying a 12-year-old girl, was not normal, even in that time. What is the historian saying? The historian believes that Bana invented or twisted the story to make it sound poetic and natural. But the real reason for the marriage was political pressure. At that time, the Makaris were much more powerful than the Pushyabhutis, Prabhakara's family. So when the powerful Grahavarman asked to marry the young Rajashri, King Prabhakara could not say no. He had no real choice because he was politically weaker. Bana hid this fact and instead told a sweet poetic story to protect the king's image and avoid saying the truth. In short, what really happened? On the surface, the story says, the king heard a poem, got worried, talked to his wife, accepted a marriage proposal. But deep down is, a powerful prince asked for the girl's hand. King had free. Bana created a story that looked like a free, natural decision. Real meaning. This passage is not. It shows how weaker kings had to obey stronger ones. How political power controlled personal decisions like marriage. How writers like Bana used stories to protect the reputation of their king. How history sometimes hides the truth using poetry, emotion, and clever language. If you'd like, I can also break the poem line word by word or show how political marriages worked in ancient India using more examples. Would you like that next? Here is a great, deep, and simple summary of the full passage, A New Prabhakara, explained in a way that even someone with no background in history can understand clearly. It's about Prabhakara Vardhana, father of the famous king Harsha. He was a king of Tanisar in North India around early 600s CE. What is being discussed? Historians are debating whether Prabhakara Vardhana actually fought and defeated many powerful enemies, or was simply praised in poetry by his son's court poet Bana, and didn't really fight all those wars. Why is this important? Because it helps us understand how powerful Prabhakara really was. About him are true history or just royal praise. What is the main issue? The main question is, did Prabhakara Vardhana truly win wars against many kingdoms? Or are those just flowery words in a poem written to praise him? Key points from the passage explained simply. 1. Was Prabhakara Vardhana really independent? Until about 603 or 604 CE, Prabhakara was under the control of the Makaris, a bigger and older ruling family, so he was not fully free for most of his rule. He may have become fully independent only near the end of his life. 2. Who were the enemies he is said to have defeated? The poem, Harsha Charita, says he fought the Hunas, feared warriors from the northwest, the Gandharas, region in Afghanistan, Pakistan, the king of Sindhu, Indus region, the Malavas, Latash, Gurjaras, kingdoms in western India. But the only source we have is the poem by Bana, not any solid inscription or record of battles. What do different historians say? Historians who say the campaigns were real. 1. Vincent Smith, Prabhakara really defeated these enemies. He became famous and powerful because of it. 2. C.V. Vaidya, he was the top king of North India. He beat and humbled his enemies. He was right to take big royal titles like Maharajadara, King of Kings. 3. R.K., he almost became an emperor by conquering or scaring many kingdoms. Even if he didn't always fight, his power and fear spread across North India. Historians who say the campaigns may be poetic exaggeration. 1. R.S. Tripathi. The description is probably just poetical praise. It compares Prabhakara to other rulers, but doesn't prove real victories. 2. G.S. Chatterjee. He finds no proof of actual battles. 3. R.C. The poem is unclear. Maybe he just scared some kings, not actually defeated them. Final thought. So what is the truth? Based on the timeline and historical facts, Prabhakara Vardhana was growing powerful, but was not fully independent until late in his life. There is no strong historical proof, like inscriptions or documents, that he really fought and won wars against all those kingdoms. The stories in Harsha Charita may be royal praise written by Bana, not actual history. Simple analogy to understand the debate. Imagine someone says, "My grandfather beat the strongest boxers, ruled the whole neighborhood, and everyone feared him." But when you check history, you only find this in a poem written by his grandson's friend. There are no photos, no records, no articles, nothing else. So historians ask, did he really fight and win, or is it just a proud family story? That's exactly what's happening here with Prabhakaravardhana's campaigns. In short, the summary in one line. Prabhakaravardhana may have been a strong and ambitious king, but the stories of his great military victories might be more poetic praise than proven historical fact. Here is a great, deep, detailed summary of the entire passage in the simplest possible way, like teaching a beginner or a child, with extra background added so that everything makes full sense. MASH main topic. We are learning about Prabhakaravardhana, the father of Harshavardhana, a famous king, and how he dealt with two groups. 1. The Hunas, foreign invaders from Central Asia. 2. The king of Sindhu, a regional ruler in the northwest of the Indian subcontinent. We're also checking, did Prabhakara actually fight them? Or are the stories about his bravery just poetic exaggeration? Part 1. Prabhakaravardhana and the Hunas. The Hunas were once very dangerous foreign invaders. They entered India around the 400s to 500 CE. At their peak, they defeated many Indian kings and caused chaos. But by the time Prabhakaravardhana came to power, early 600s, they had lost much of their strength. Still, they hadn't disappeared. They were causing minor trouble in the northwest. Prabhakaravardhana's son, Rajavardhana, was sent to deal with the Hunas. A poet said he went to a place glowing like Mount Kailasa, a sacred mountain of Lord Shiva. This poetic line means, he went to a remote, important place in the mountains, probably northwest India. The poet Bana, who wrote a biography of Harsha, called Prabhakara a lion to the deer like Hunas. This means the Hunas were weak like deer, and Prabhakara was powerful like a lion. But this might be just flattery. The actual battle seems to have been fought by his son, not him. Even if Prabhakara didn't fight the Hunas directly, it's possible that he fought them earlier in life, when he was serving his overlords, the Makaris, a powerful dynasty. So he may have fought on behalf of someone else, not for himself. Some historians, like R.C. Majumdar, say maybe no real battle happened at all. But this seems wrong, because the poet Bana clearly says that Rajavardhana had white bandages on his body from arrow wounds. These wounds came from a real fight with the Hunas. So even if Prabhakara didn't fight them, his son definitely did, and was even injured in battle. Conclusion of Part 1. There's solid evidence that Rajavardhana fought and got wounded fighting the Hunas. Prabhakara might have fought them earlier in a smaller way, or helped his overlords fight them. But the grand heroic titles given to him by the poet might be a bit exaggerated. Part 2. Prabhakaravardhana and the king of Sindhu. Prabhakara was also said to have been a threat to the king of Sindhu. But we have no real proof that an actual war or battle happened. It's possible Prabhakara was powerful enough to scare the king of Sindhu, but they didn't go to war. Where was Sindhu? The name Sindhu has meant different regions in different times. Usually it means the area around the Indus River, mostly in present-day Pakistan. According to the scholar Debahuti, during that time, the region of Sindhu went from where the rivers Satluj and Indus meet down to the Arabian Sea. It was a large kingdom with a big capital city called Alor, possibly Abhijanavapura. The poet Bana may be referring to this Sindhu kingdom, which was not far from Stanvishvara, modern Thanesar, in Haryana, the capital of the Vardhana dynasty. Prabhakara's kingdom bordered 3 other western kingdoms. 1. Taka, Punjab region. 2. Sindhu, Indus Valley. 3. Gurjara, Rajasthan, Gujarat area. What happened later? Later on, Prabhakara's son Harshavardhana is said to have actually defeated the king of Sindhu in battle. He became famous because of this victory. So while Prabhakara may not have fought Sindhu directly, his son Harsha did. Final deep summary in plain points. 1. The Hunas were weaker in Prabhakara's time but still existed. 2. Rajavardhana, Prabhakara's son, was definitely sent to fight them. 3. He received real wounds from their arrows, proving a real battle happened. 4. The poet Bana praises Prabhakara as a lion to the Hunas, but this may be just poetic flattery. 5. Some historians doubt there was a fight, but the description of wounds proves otherwise. Number 6. Prabhakara may have fought the Hunas earlier in life when serving Malkaris. 7. He was also a threat to the king of Sindhu, but no actual war is recorded. 8. Sindhu was a large kingdom in northwestern India, probably around modern Pakistan. 9. The kingdoms of Taka, Sindhu, and Gurjara were neighbors to Prabhakara's kingdom. 10. Later, Harsha, his son, actually defeated the Sindhu king and became famous. Would you like this turned into a diagram or map next? Or should I explain who the Malkaris or Takas were in the same simple style? Here is a very simple, detailed summary of the full passage you shared. It's written like you're a complete beginner, so every part is made easy to understand with background added where helpful. Deep and simple summary. Prabhakara Vardhana's political relations with Gandhara, Gurjaras, and Lata. 1. Prabhakara Vardhana and Gandhara. Prabhakara Vardhana was a king in North India around Thanesar in modern Haryana in the early 600s AD. He did not have friendly relations with a kingdom called Gandhara, which was located in northwest Pakistan, near the Indus River. But although they were not friendly, there is no proof that he fought a war with them. A Chinese monk named Xuanzang, Yuan Shuang, visited Gandhara in around 631 AD and called it Kanto Lo. Xuanzang wrote that Gandhara's capital was Purushapura, now Peshawar, and at that time, Gandhara was ruled by the kingdom of Kapisha, which was further west in modern Afghanistan. He also noted that the northern areas between Gandhara and Prabhakara's territory were ruled by Kashmir. But historians warn that this political map during Xuanzang's visit may have been different earlier, during Prabhakara's time. What this means, Prabhakara Vardhana and Gandhara were enemies, but there's no sign of war. When the Chinese monk Xuanzang came later, Gandhara was controlled by Kapisha, and the land north of it was under Kashmir. But this could have changed since Prabhakara Vardhana's time. 2. Prabhakara Vardhana and the Gurjaras. An Indian writer named Bana, who wrote about Prabhakara Vardhana, does not mention any war between Prabhakara and the Gurjaras. But he does call Prabhakara a troubler of the sleep of the Gurjara king, meaning he scared or threatened him, maybe with military pressure or fear. These Gurjaras were probably located in Punjab, near modern Gujarat and Gujranwala in Pakistan, not in today's Gujarat state. Some people wrongly think these Gurjaras were the same as the Pratiharas of Mandor, Jodhpur, a later dynasty in Rajasthan. But this is not correct, because the Mandor Pratihan never called themselves Gurjaras, and there's no proof they belonged to the Gurjara tribe. What this means, Vardhana didn't fight the Gurjaras, but he might have threatened or scared them. These Gurjara Punjab region, they were not related to the later Pratiharas of Jodhpur. 3. The Latas and who they really were. A scholar named Buhler believed the Latas were a branch of the Gurjaras, living near Bharuch in modern Gujarat. But another scholar, Ray Chaudhuri, said that Latas might have actually been the Kalachuris, a different group. Why? Because the Kalachuris defeated the later Guptas in a city called Vidisha, modern Vidisha, Madhya Pradesh, around 608 AD. A third scholar, Vatsyayana, explained where Lata was, the land between the Tapti and Mahi rivers, to the west of Malwa, central India. An old record called the Aihole inscription says that Pulakeshin II, a powerful king of the Chalukyas, defeated the Latas, Malavas, and Gurjaras. Some people think Prabhakara Vardhana also conquered Lata. But this is hard to believe, because Lata was far from Prabhakara's kingdom. It's possible he only helped the Malkaris, his allies, in some war where Lata was on the opposite side. What this means. Some think Prabhakara Vardhana fought the Latas, but it's not likely. Lata was very far away. He may have just helped his allies in some battles. Also, there's confusion about who the Latas really were. Some say Gurjaras, some say Kalachuris. Final point. Historians often struggle to clearly understand ancient events. That's because big claims are sometimes made based on very small bits of evidence, like inscriptions or poems. These small facts can create confusion and make it hard to know what really happened. What this means: reconstructing history is tough. People sometimes make big claims from small facts, which can mislead us about the past. Hack one-line ultra-simple summary. Prabhakara Vardhana didn't fight Gandhara or Gurjaras directly, but had tense relations. Many old political stories are unclear, and historians must be careful not to make big guesses from small clues. Would you like a map, timeline, or visual chart to go with this? I can also make a mini biography of Prabhakara Vardhana, or show where all these places are on a simple map. Just let me know. Here is a great, deep, and detailed summary in the simplest, clearest language possible. Like teaching a total beginner or child, every idea is included and explained. Topic: who was Prabhakara Vardhana's enemy in Malava? This summary is about a historical debate. Who was the main enemy of Prabhakara Vardhana, the father of the famous king Harsha, in a region called Malava, central India, around modern Madhya Pradesh? 1. What historian Mukherjee believed? Mukherjee believed that King Siladharman was Prabhakara Vardhana's enemy. Yashodharman had once been a very strong ruler in Malava, famous for defeating the Huns. Siladitya became king after Yashodharman, and Mukherjee thought Prabhakara Vardhana fought him. Why? Mukherjee said that Prabhakara Vardhana led a group of allied kingdoms, a confederacy, that included the Makharis from Kanauj, the Pushyabhutis, his own family, from Thanazar, the Guptas of eastern Malava. He believed this group attacked Siladitya to fight for control over Malava. 2. The family angle, a personal rivalry? Mukherjee gave another reason for the conflict. He claimed that Prabhakara Vardhana's wife, Queen Yashovati, was the daughter of Yashodharman. If true, this would mean Siladitya, son of Yashodharman, and Yashovati, daughter, were siblings. So Prabhakara Vardhana would be Siladitya's brother-in-law. Mukherjee thought this was not just a political fight, but a personal family rivalry. A fight between the son, Siladitya, and the son-in-law, Prabhakara Vardhana, over who should rule Malava after Yashodharman died. 3. Why other scholars disagree. Other historians do not accept Mukherjee. Here's why. Mukherjee didn't give any clear evidence. He didn't quote inscriptions, writings, or sources to prove that. Siladitya was Yashodharman's son. Yashovati was Yashodharman's daughter, or that Prabhakara Vardhana ever fought Siladitya. So his theory is seen as just a guess with no strong support. 4. The more likely enemy, Devagupta of Malava. Most historians today believe the real enemy was King Devagupta of Malava, not Siladitya. Why? We learn from Harsha's inscriptions that a king called the Wicked Lord of Malava killed Grahavarman. Grahavarman was a king of the Malkari dynasty and the husband of Harsha's sister. This makes him Harsha's brother-in-law and Prabhakara Vardhana's son-in-law. Because Devagupta killed Grahavarman, it made him an enemy of Prabhakara Vardhana's family. 5. Was there a war? Yes, there was probably a war between Prabhakara Vardhana and Devagupta. The war seems to have been inconclusive. No one clearly won. But this conflict was serious, and it may have caused later wars during Harsha's time. The poet Bana, who wrote about Harsha's life, mentioned a war, and this may be the one he was talking about. Final summary, very simple points. Mukherjee said Prabhakara Vardhana fought Siladitya, his brother-in-law, over the throne of Malava. He thought it was a family rivalry, but he gave no real proof. Modern historians think the real enemy was Devagupta, the king who killed Harsha's brother-in-law Grahavarman. Prabhakara Vardhana probably fought a war with Devagupta, which had no clear winner. This war is remembered in Harsha's history, but the full details are not completely known. Would you like a visual family tree or a map to show these people and places more clearly? I can make that for you too. Great, deep, detailed, and simple topic. Vardhana's proclamation of everything discussed. Who was Prabhakara Vardhana? He was a king from Thanisar in present-day Haryana, and the father of Harsha Vardhana, a great Indian emperor. He belonged to the Pushyabhudi dynasty. In his early years, he was under the control, suzerainty of a bigger power, the Makkaris of Kanauj. Over time, he became stronger, and people have debated whether he declared independence and became a sovereign ruler, free king. Did Vardhana expand his... There's no strong evidence that he expanded his territory significantly. He had hostile or military relationships with several neighboring powers, but that doesn't mean he conquered them. His relations with other kingdoms. 1. Sindhu, Gandhara, and Gurjara. He had hostile relations, meaning he saw them as enemies, but there is no proof he actually fought battles or took land from them. 2. Hunas Huns. The Huns were invaders who attacked northwestern India. Prabhakara sent his son Rajyavardhana to fight them. Earlier, he had also helped the Makarish fight against the Huns. So these wars seem to have been part of his duty under the Makarish, not for his own expansion. 3. Lata country, located in western India, near Gujarat. There is no clear proof that Prabhakara fought and conquered this land. If he did fight, it was probably while helping the Makaris in their wars. 4. Malavas. This was one case where there was real conflict. Prabhakara is described as an axe to the glory of the Malavas. This means he seriously hurt them, like an axe cuts a tree. The Malava king, Devagupta, had attacked Prabhakara's allies, especially Kumaragupta and Madhavagupta, who were forced to take shelter in Prabhakara's court. This made it a personal war for Prabhakara, and this conflict might have helped him grow in power. The coronation question. Did he declare himself independent? Bana, the court writer of Harsha, mentions that Prabhakara had a coronation, official ceremony to become king. Scholar B.N. Sharma believed this coronation shows he declared himself fully independent from the Makaris. But this idea is not confirmed, because even feudatory rulers, bigger kings, had nations. Example 1, a prince named Kumara was coronated but was still under Harsha. Example 2, the Maitraka inscription talks about a king named Dronasimha being coronated. But the ceremony was performed by his overlord, not by himself. So, just having a coronation does not prove that a king was truly independent. Conclusion of the summary. Prabhakara Vardhana became militarily strong and likely challenged his enemies boldly, especially the Malavas. He fought wars, some for himself, some likely for the Makarish. He did have a coronation, but that alone doesn't prove he declared full independence. He may have been moving toward independence, but history does not give solid proof that he officially broke away from the Makaris before his son Harsha rose to power. In simple words, Prabhakara Vardhana was a powerful king who stood up to enemies and became very important, but we cannot if he fully became an independent king. He had military success, especially against the Malavas, and had a crowning ceremony. But these things also happened to kings who still served a bigger ruler. So historians still debate whether he was truly free or still under the control of others. Let me know if you'd like a timeline, character map, or interactive chart. I can make it even clearer. Sure. Here's a deep, detailed summary of the passage used clearly and thoroughly. Deep, detailed summary. Prabhakara Vardhana, originally under the authority of the Makari dynasty, eventually declared himself fully independent and took the grand royal title Maharaja Dhiraja, meaning Great King of Kings. This step toward independence likely happened after his daughter Rajyashri's marriage, which linked him to the Makari royal family, and before his death. Of the time made this the Makari rulers, to whom Prabhakara was once loyal, were weakening. One key cause was the rise of Sashanka, the powerful king of Gauda, roughly Bengal and nearby regions. Sashanka expanded his territory westward, gradually taking control over important areas like Magadha and eastern Uttar Pradesh, lands previously ruled by the Makaris. This expansion was not sudden, but a slow process taking many years, which meant Prabhakara and others were well aware of the Makkari decline. Specifically, Sashanka's rise culminated in the killing of Grahavarman, the Makkari prince and Prabhakara's son-in-law, which showed how weak the Makkaris had become. With the Makkaris losing power and territory, Prabhakara found the opportunity to assert himself as an independent ruler. Since the Makkari overlords were no longer strong enough to stop him, Prabhakara's declaration of independence and adoption of the title Maharajadiraja was a realistic and bold political move in this unstable time. Key points. Prabhakara was initially a subordinate ruler, but became independent later. His daughter's marriage connected him closely to the Makkari royal family. The Makkari power weakened due to Sashanka's growing empire. Sashanka's gradual conquest included important Makkari lands. Grahavarman, the Makkari prince and Prabhakara's son-in-law, was killed by Sashanka's forces. Seeing this decline, Prabhakara boldly declared himself a king of kings. The weakened Makkari rulers could not oppose his claim. This summary captures the political background, key characters, important events, and the reasons behind Prabhakara's independence in a clear and detailed way. Let me know if you want me to explain any part. Here is a deep, detailed, and very simple summary of the and her children, made specially for you, like a great teacher explaining to a beginner. Deep, detailed summary of Yasomati and her children, in the most simple and clear language. Yasomati was the chief queen, most important wife, of a king named Prabhakaravardhana. In those times, kings had many wives, but only one was the main or official queen. And that was Yasomati. She was proud of this position and even described herself as having a special headband, fillet, worn by chief queens, and that she stood above the other wives. She even said, in poetic words, that her feet were on the heads of the other wives, meaning she was more than them. Unusual for her time. She performed sati, a ritual where a wife dies after her husband's death. But she did it before her husband died, which almost never happened. This was strange, and we don't know exactly why she did it, but it shows how strong or emotional her decision was. Some people think Yasomati came from a powerful royal family, but the famous writer Bana, who wrote about her life, did not mention any royal background. If her family had been very important, Bana would have written about it, because that was a big deal back then. However, her family was not ordinary or low-ranking either. A historian named S.R. Goyal said Yasomati's family must have been respected and brave. This is because in old writings she is called daughter of a hero, and one who was earned by bravery, meaning her father was a courageous man, maybe a warrior. Her nephew, her brother's son, Bandi, is also called a Rajaputra, which means prince. So her family likely had royal or noble connections, even if not ruling kings. Another idea came from historians Hornell and R.K. Mukherjee, who believed that Yasomati was the daughter of Yashodharman, a king from the Malwa region. They said this based on the similar names and descriptions of bravery and righteousness, dharma, in her family. But this idea doesn't work because Yashodharman disappeared from politics after 533 AD, but Yasomati's parents were still alive much later, even after Yasomati and her husband died. So she couldn't have been Yashodharman's daughter. What we do know clearly is this: Yasomati had very high status as queen. According to Bana's writing, Prabhakara didn't want children from any other wife. He prayed for years to have a child with Yasomati. That shows how special she was to him, both as a person and as a queen. Eventually, the gods answered his prayers and they had children together. Their children included Harsha, very powerful emperor in history. Key takeaways. Yasomati was the most honored wife of King Prabhakara. She was proud of being chief queen and saw herself as above other wives. She did sati before her husband died, something very rare. Scholars think she was not from a famous royal dynasty, but her family was still respected and brave. She was called daughter of a hero, and her nephew was a prince, showing noble status. Some thought she was daughter of King Yashodharman, but this is probably wrong. Her importance was so great that Prabhakara only wanted children from her, and prayed to the gods for many years until that happened. Let me know if you'd like this in bullet points, a timeline, or turned into a story format. I can also explain what queen she was, or tell you more about her son Harsha. Here is a deep, detailed, and simple summary of everything you've read, explained like a kind teacher talking to a beginner with no background. This will help you understand not just what happened, but why it mattered in a clear and easy way. Summary: Prabhakara, Yashomati, and their children. Who were Prabhakara and Yashomati? Prabhakara Vardhana was a powerful king who ruled over parts of northern India in the early 7th century. He had many wives, but his chief and most respected queen was Yashomati. Yashomati had a very high status in the court. She proudly said that she wore the royal headband of the chief queen, and that her feet were like a crown placed on the heads of her rival queens. This means she was respected more than the other wives. What kind of woman was Yashomati? She performed sati. That means she jumped into her husband's funeral fire, even before he died, which was very unusual. Her father's family was not from a well-known royal dynasty, but it was still very brave and respected. She was called daughter of a hero and a woman earned by valor. This means her husband may have married her because her family had proven its bravery. Some scholars guessed that she might be the daughter of King Yashodharman of Malwa, but this is not likely because Yashodharman disappeared from history long before Yashomati's parents died. We know her parents were still alive even after her and her husband's death. Yashomati's children. Prabhakara and Yashomati had 3 children. 1. Rajyavardhana II, eldest son, born around 586 AD. His birth was celebrated with joy in the capital city because he was the firstborn prince. He was nearly 6 years old when his younger brother Harsha was born. Harsha, younger son, born on 90 AD, according to the historian C.V. Vaidya. When Harsha was just learning to walk with the help of his nurse's finger, Rajyavardhana was already a young child, about 6 years old. Harsha's birth was considered far more important and special, according to the court poet Bana, who later wrote Harsha's biography, Harsha Charita. The celebrations for Harsha's birth were very grand. Prisoners were freed from jail, shops were opened, and people could take goods freely. The royal treasury likely paid the shopkeepers afterward. Wives of smaller kings came and gave gifts like flowers, nuts, and perfumes. Everyone in the capital city danced in celebration. 3. Rajyashri, daughter, born around 592 AD. She was the youngest child. She later played an important role in Harsha's life and in history. Is there another brother? One person named Krishna is also mentioned but he was probably not Yashomati's son. He might have been a stepbrother, son of a different wife of Prabhakara, or a cousin referred to as a brother. So Harsha's main full siblings were Rajyavardhana and Rajyashri, both born to Yashomati. What is most important here? 1. Yashomati's importance. She was the chief queen, very proud and respected. Her family was not famous, but brave and noble. She was the mother of all 3 royal children. 2. Harsha's special position. Even though he was the second son, his birth was celebrated more, and he later became the great emperor Harshavardhana. The grand celebration of his birth shows how much hope and importance was placed on him. 3. The royal family was close and respected. The births of all the children, especially Harsha, were national events, not just private family matters. People across the kingdom celebrated. This shows the strong connection between the king and his people. If you'd like, I can also make a family tree diagram of Prabhakara's family. Write this as a story for children. Summarize Harsha's rise to power next. Would you like any of those?